Educated Kids learning session, we'll be understanding the smart learning today. The smart learning is the innovation of Educated Research and Education Foundation. And through this smart learning, we are introducing very common and important 5 types of learning techniques that can be introduced in different preschools as well as at home-based learning system. So these 5 techniques are based on various common techniques of learning, and we at Educated Foundation we call it as smart learning at different preschools. So let's go and understand what is this smart and how, as a school, as a teacher, as a stakeholder of preschool skill development process, how you can adopt this smart learning either at your school or at your home setting. That's going to be very, very interesting. Now, as I said, this smart is the combination of 5 different learning methods, especially designed for early child development. And if you look to the first one, S of smart, that is called scaffolding. In different setup, we have been discussing scaffolding as one of very, very effective technique of skill building. And under this scaffolding learning, we preschool educators create the learning objective very, very clearly. And we ensure that the children, they do all the activities by themselves, gradually by reducing their dependency on the teacher. And this scaffolding technique ensures that children, they do everything by their own, and a child will be able to do any task provided the child's understanding and vision about the task is very, very clear. So from that perspective, scaffolding becomes an effective technique, and we have made quite a lot of training material on scaffolding, and we'll also discuss a little bit on the surface level about scaffolding so that you know what scaffolding is, and if you feel that scaffolding is going to be useful for your school, then you may look further to implement them for your school. Then the second technique in the smart comes is the multisensory. Multisensory technique talks about the common principle, and that principle is that if we use multiple senses of the children, then the learning becomes multifaceted and learning becomes much faster. So the whole idea is to ensure you create various avenues, you create various activities where child is bound to use more than one senses simultaneously to do that particular activity. Then the third technique in the SMART is the activity-based learning. Activity-based learning has been very, very popular in most part of this country as well as the world, because the Maria Montessori philosophy tells that if the children will be provided with right amount of interesting activities which are connected to the skill building objectives, then it becomes very, very easy task for the children to pick up right skill at right time. So we'll be discussing, there are 4 major skill areas that we are going to develop, but whole idea of activity-based learning is that it has to be structured well. If activities are not structured, if activities are not connected to the right objective, then it becomes little bit of ineffective while we are talking about the skill development of the children. Then moving to the fourth technique of skill building among children in preschool, that is called rote learning. Rote learning is an age old technique which has been used since decades. And this rote learning, its basic principle of rote learning is to memorize various concepts and memorize various literacy as well as numeracy related concepts, so that memorizing things will lead to better cognitive development of the child. Once the cognitive development of the child happens through memorization, then rest of the things will automatically fall in place. So rote learning, although many educators, they feel that rote learning need to be developed further, but still at Eduvarate Education and Research Foundation, we feel rote learning still is an effective and impactful learning mechanism, and it must be done with proper technique and proper structure so that it will create impact on the skill development of the children. Then the fifth technique in the smart learning is the thematic learning. Recently, when NCERT has come out with national education policy for the early child development, it gives lot of emphasis on thematic learning or theme-based learning. What it does is that it takes into account a particular theme, and all sort of skills revolving around that theme is taken into consideration by the teachers and educators, and they make sure the child learns all the skills associated to that particular theme, so that the child becomes a kind of expert as far as the theme is concerned. So these are the five techniques or five major learning mechanism which are being followed at most of the preschools either in India or outside India. Now we'll just go little further so that you as a teacher, you as a school owner or as a parent, you can understand what we can expect and what kind of technique is feasible to be implemented in our own school. Now come about the S of SMART, and this is the very first technique we talked about in Spark, and this is called scaffolding. And as we know that scaffolding has been a technique which allows the children to do the things by themselves by gradually reducing the dependency upon the teacher. It has got few components. First and foremost component of scaffolding is the age appropriate task with clear learning objective. As we know that if the task objective is not clearly defined, then it may lead to a lot of confusion and a lot of uh, dilution of skills together. So, first principle of scaffolding talks about the task must be age appropriate and activity must be defined for each and every learning that we bring as a skill development plans for the children. Why we call it should be age appropriate is that the child must enjoy doing that particular activity so that the specific objectives of that particular activity can be achieved. Then second component of scaffolding talks about the material or prop that we use in the activity should be properly defined, and there must be some objective. There must be some connection to that material that we use as a part of the scaffolding process. Then material can be designed by the teacher, or if the teachers they do not have proper time and uh, the other support system, they can get such material which are pre-designed and it's available at different places. For example, Eduvarate Kids is defining and developing a lot of pre-designed materials which can be immediately taken by the preschools and they can start using them so that they can save quite a lot of time uh, for designing such. Then make advanced planning for this material to be used for specific skill, because if the planning is not well defined, then doing that at the last moment will create a lot of confusion among the children. Third component of scaffolding is that creating a process to do any kind of activity. The very basic principle of scaffolding talks that we design a zone of proximal learning, meaning if a task is distributed into 4, 5, or 6 different zones, sixth zone being the most easiest zone to do by the children and one being the most difficult zone, then the processes has to be defined in such a way that if the child is able to do the sixth level, then while the child will be moving to achieving the skill objective, which is basically concentrated around the step one, then the child must be able to do everything, every step independently while looking for minimal amount of support from the teacher. And such things will be possible if whole task will be divided into multiple components and each component has to be done with very, very straightforward steps so that child remembers and child is able to complete them and connect them to the next level of component. Fourth part of scaffolding, which is very important for us to understand, is the stepwise task. When it is done, then it must be designed from easy to hard. It cannot be just designed haywire, or it cannot be designed from hard to easy. It must be designed from easy to hard steps. Why it is has to be done in that way? If the child is able to do or enjoy a task, then child must be given a very, very easy task. If child is doing that easy task and the task is connected to the next level, doesn't matter even if it is bit difficult, then child will be looking forward to that particular activity because the child has already got some kind of uh, connection to do that activity. That's very, very important. Next component of the scaffolding is that reduction of the steps for a particular task. Imagine one task we have distributed into 6 components. Then child is doing first component, child is doing second component. Gradually, child is doing all 6 components so that child gets that sense of independency while doing a particular task. Now, instead of 6 components, next task for the educator is that to make that component instead of 6, make it 3 or 4. Now, what's happening? There are a couple of things are overlapping with each other. Now that becomes little bit of more challenge to the child to think how this particular task will be done. Now the child will be feeling confident because the child has already done one round of this activity in a easy steps. Now even if there will be 2 steps combined together, child will not feel difficult in order to completing that task. That's where the scaffolding becomes a very, very effective technique in the early child development. And finally, the sixth component of scaffolding is that reduction of the dependency on the teacher. That is the principle and the whole idea of the technique of scaffolding. If the dependency on teacher is not reduced, then the child's learning is not happening. So if one activity has to be done, the activity must be continued until the child is doing that particular activities alone without any dependency on the teacher. So this is the scaffolding, which is very, very effective tool. And if any of your school or any of the teachers would like to do that, please get into our detailed understanding or detailed training on scaffolding so that you will be feeling it easy to do that. Now we'll be talking about the second component or second learning technique, which is aim of smart, that is multi-sensory learning technique. And this multi-sensory learning technique, as I said, it talks about if there will be multiple senses of the child will be used during a particular activity, then chances of learning becomes very, very high. So there is one concept called VAKT concept, VAKT Vakt concept. Now, V stands for visual. Visual is one of the sense organ or eyesight, and all the activities those use the eyesight extensively, like identify various colors in a particular picture, or identifying different size of different material, they are being part of the whole activity, or minute things that is there in a picture, or counting various objects, or various things where eyesight needs to be very focused. That has to be one of the objective in multisensory activities. So first component of multisensory activity is the visual. So you identify and create all activities where eyesight will be extensively used. Now, second component of multisensory learning technique is auditory technique, or improving the auditory sense of the child. And here what we do, we create activities where the listening skills will be extensively used. So it could be sound of any letter for that purpose, sound of various animal, sound of various vehicles. So when the child listens them, then child internalize those things in a very, very effective manner. And when child listens, then we make meaning out of that. So the making meaning through different listening sounds, that makes a child quite skillful. And listening from a distance, listening to make meaning, listening to multiple complex things, that improve the skill of the child. So multisensory things requires second component would be auditory. Third component of multi-sensory learning technique is the kinetic. And here it talks about the physical activities basically. So when the child is using hand and leg and other muscles and joints for various activities, physical activities, then finally the gross and fine motor skill of the child is getting policed and it is getting improved. As we have been aware that gross and fine motor skill is very, very important for a child's movement skills, which may lead to proficiency in various physical related professions like sports. These particular sensory activities will make your child's gross and fine motor skill is taken care of through these multisensory activities. And finally, the fourth component of multisensory skill, what we can just use this VAKT as one of the mechanism of multisensory learning process, is the tactile. So tactile basically is the touch of various objects and making meaning out of that. So touching various surfaces, touching various objects, and feeling them, that's what is one of the major skill for the child to develop. So this skill also requires to make sure the child's writing skill is also being better. So this VAKT can be utilized for the multisensory learning mechanism. And here, what is important, each of the uh, sensory organs can be utilized, or it can be utilized multiply. So now, after working with individual activities where one sense is being used as extensively, later what we can do, we can design and develop activities where multiple organs like visual and auditory both can be used at the similar proportion. So what will happen? Child's eye-hand coordination, child's reflection, everything will be developed in a much better way. So multisensory learning mechanism can be used in isolation or it can be used in combination with our other learning techniques for the preschool learning process. Now let's move to the next technique of our smart, and this is the A of smart, which is called as activity based learning. In Adiveret Kids, we have been talking about activity based learning in a very extensive manner because this is one of the technique ABL or activity based learning where which is comparatively easy, but it has got a technique, it has got a mechanism through which it will create better results. Now, under this activity based learning, we have four components to remember. We are not talking about the details about four components, which has already been established at a different kit into a system. So you can talk to us, you can just call us if you want to adopt this activity based learning at your school. First skill under activity based learning is planning skill. So any activities we design, if the planning is not done, if the child is not developing the planning skill, then activity based learning is futile. So there are multiple components under planning skill, which at this point of time we are not discussing. But if you are interested, you can either check out other learning videos of Adivaret Kids, which will give you much better understanding about the planning skill under activity-based learning. Next skill, the second component of activity-based learning is organizing skill. Organizing skill again has got multiple subcomponents, and organization skill talks about how a child organizes various components of activities or various materials of that particular activity to make sure the activity is being done in right perspective. Then third component is the processing skill. While doing a particular activity, then we do multiple things. So there must be a stepwise approach. First, what are the things we have to do? Second, what are the things we have to do? Fourth, what are the things we have to do? So if a particular activity is not done through a structured step, then creating any activity or completing them will not add any skill for the children. Now, finally, the fourth component of activity-based learning is the finishing skill. Now, it's very important. Although it is very easy to start any activity, most of the places it has been observed that children, they fail to complete a particular task they take up. So, to ensuring that the activity-based learning is also is also including the sense of accomplishment, the child must be skilled to finish a task which the child starts. So these are the fourth component. We are not going details of each and every component. As I said, if you want to know more about that, please visit our other learning videos, which will give you much understanding about this activity-based learning. And this is a very fantastic and easy learning mechanism. Most of the schools, they should find it very easy to do it. Now we'll move to the fourth learning technique, which is R of SMART. This R is called as rote learning. Rote learning is a very age-old mechanism or technique of learning things are introduced in various play schools. Now, understanding the rote learning, it is coming from the very basic component of Bloom's taxonomy. As teachers, we all of us are aware about Bloom's taxonomy, and Bloom's taxonomy out of 5 or 6 steps of learning, very first steps talks about remembering or memorizing. So when the Bloom's taxonomy says that memorizing any concept will be the very, very basic and preliminary step of moving further in understanding different skills. We feel and we strongly believe that preschool must be giving quite a lot of importance on the rote learning in order to make sure the children are getting better off every time. Now, under this, the first component of the Bloom's taxonomy, as I said, is remembering. So we have structured at Educated Kids how the rote learning can be formalized or how the rote learning can be structured to make it as a implementable technique in any school that you can always talk to us will be helping you to implement such a beautiful teaching technique for your school. Under remembering, what we do is that we simply ensure that recitation or repeating things has to be done based on the syllabus of that particular class. So under this remembering, there are two-way connection. Remembering improves the cognitive level. So now if we just think otherwise, if we just do repeat a particular thing again and again, again and again, automatically there will be an improvement in the cognitive skill. So whatever syllabus, either it's numeracy skill, whether it's a literacy skill, whatever is there, if a child will be allowed to memorizing things, then child's cognitive skill is bound to be improved very, very structurally. Now, second part of the Bloom's taxonomy is the understanding. Once the child is able to remember things, understanding will be developed automatically. So for that purpose, what we have done as a structure, we have created three techniques under this understanding: show, act, make felt, and tell. Either you show and tell, or you act and tell, or you make that feeling of that child, either it's a touching skill or anything, and after that you tell. Now, once this remembering happens, this understanding becomes a natural process, provided such kind of technique is being used in the school. And third component is the interpreting, because when the child remembers, when the child understands, then the child start interpreting things. And we at Educated Kids, we have created a structure called 1, 2, 3, 4 information. So in the beginning, we provide one information, let the child remember. Then once the child is comfortable remembering that, we add one more information, let the child remember and understand. Once the child understands the two set of information, we add one more information. Then if the child understands that, we add one more information. If you look to that information, gradually we are ensuring the child remembers bigger amount of information, bigger amount of data as compared to the beginning. So now because of that, child's overall development happens and interpretation skill of the child is also improving. And finally, then child is doing analyzing and applying. And for that, gradually, as a part of Educated Kids research, we have introduced what, who, where, how, and why, these five interpreting skills very structurally one by one. Now imagine once the child is able to remember large amount of data and understanding them, just putting a question related to those information through what, who, where, how, and why, then child will be very, very comfortable in answering those things. So that is the beauty of rote learning. We at Educated Kid has done it very, very systematic way how to implement rote learning in your school, that you can any point of time refer to Educated Kids learning videos. This will give you much, much better insight for this rote learning. And we have done that. We call that syllabus as the CARE syllabus, where rote learning is being used extensively for this purpose. Moving further, and this is the last technique of SMART, and this is the T of SMART. Now, under T of SMART, it is called thematic learning. As I said, Government of India through NCERT, and so also the Organization of International Repute, they have also identified theme-based learning is also very, very effective as far as the child skill is concerned. So under thematic learning, what we do is that we identify various theme which is the basic learning part of the child skill development process. So once the themes are defined, for example, me and my friends, it's a theme. That means one child is there, child is connected with different friends. Now, if we look to this particular theme, there are multiple soft skills are connected to this. Maybe remembering the name of each and every friend, remembering what they like and they do not like, remembering what they do at home. So all such things, if brought together around that theme, then child's understanding and skill building process will be much faster because child is focused to one concept, one theme that is called me and my friends. Similarly, other concepts which are important and taken into account in most of the early child development plans is my body. Understanding the body of the human being, starting from uh, major visible bodies like our hand, leg, eyes, nose, teeth, etc. It can go into detailing of the body parts like your nail, like your hair, all sort of things. Depends how we are creating that theme and let the child understand and have better in-depth knowledge around that. That is about the thematic learning. Similarly, we have mind family. Mind family can be taken as one theme and lot of other sub themes around family or sub skills around family can be brought into the learning part of the child. Similarly, we have plant world, different plants, the color of the leaves, the size, all sorts of things will be brought together. So when the child is spending some quality time understanding plant world, then child's understanding about the plant will be much, much better. Similarly, animal world, once the animal like domestic animal, wild animal, water animal, mammals, then similar any category related to the animal can be taken into the syllabus. And when child spends time only on animal world, then child's knowledge, interpretation, understanding will be definitely better. So thematic learning, the principle is that bring one theme, divide that theme into a lot of sub themes and sub skills, makes your child is understanding one by one very, very structurally. So it depends how many themes we need to define. So that depends on the school and school authority. But thematic learning is found to be a very, very effective learning in early child development uh, in any of these systems, education systems. So now these are the five uh, learning techniques, learning mechanism which can be employed in preschool setup to make sure we get maximum benefit in terms of skill development of our children. So thank you very much for your patient hearing, and we'll be happy to listen from you if you have anything to add, anything to complement, or you want any support from us to implement such either of these tool at your school. We'll be much happy to do that. Thank you so much.